Cruise lines are quietly building their own version of the world. Their own beaches, their own lagoons, their own water parks, their own bars, restaurants, and islands. And the bigger the ship gets, the more it feels like cruise lines want you to spend your entire vacation inside a destination they built. Is that a good thing? Or is it slowly replacing the reason a lot of us cruise in the first place? That's today's main story, and it's a good one. I have opinions on it and would love to hear yours. But first, the ports these ships dock at are changing too, and fast. I'm Angela from Grab Your Bags Travel, and this is the Wake Report. Here's this week's cruise news. If you have a European river cruise coming up this summer, there's something you need to be aware of. Some of Europe's major rivers are experiencing unusually low water levels following hot and dry weather. The Rhine, Main, and Danube are all being affected, with some sections of the Danube reportedly at exceptionally low levels. Unfortunately, water levels are one of the issues river cruises can face, and you have to understand that your trip may end up different from the way you booked it. Cruise lines are responding with things like ship swaps, changes to embarkation or disembarkation points, coach transfers around areas that can't be navigated, and in some cases, hotel stays. Some companies are continuing to operate cruises with adjustments, while a small number of departures have been canceled. So if you're taking a European river cruise this summer, this is one of those situations where I would absolutely check your cruise line's travel alerts before you leave home. And remember, Mother Nature doesn't care what kind of cruise ship you're on. Ocean cruise or river cruise, weather and environmental conditions can change your itinerary. Now let's talk about something that I think is much bigger story than any one of these individual announcements. Cruise ports are getting bigger. And I found 3 stories that really illustrate what's happening. Let's start right here in Florida. Port Tampa Bay has begun work on a brand new cruise terminal. This will be the port's 4th cruise terminal and the first new terminal built at the port in some more than 25 years. The site is the former Metroport area, and the project includes restoring more than 5 acres of new land. The terminal is expected to be completed in 2029. And the really interesting part, Port Tampa Bay says the new terminal could accommodate more than 200 additional annual ship calls and help the port eventually reach more than 2 million cruise passengers annually. That's a lot of people, and hopefully I'll be one of them. Then there's Port Canaveral. Construction has started on a $95 million renovation and expansion of Cruise Terminal 10. When it's finished, the terminal will be nearly 30% larger with more than 145,000 square feet of space. And it's being designed to accommodate some of the largest ships in the industry, ships carrying up to 7,000 passengers. The expected completion is November of 2027. And then there's Manila. The Philippines is moving toward an approximately $84 million dedicated cruise hub that could eventually accommodate 4 cruise ships at the same time. Right now, cruise ships visiting Manila have historically had to use a busy commercial cargo port. The goal of this new facility is to move cruise operations into a purpose-built passenger facility and potentially turn Manila into a true home port. Groundbreaking is targeted for late 2026. So you've got Tampa, you've got Port Canaveral, you've got Manila, different projects, different parts of the world, but they're all telling us the same thing. Cruising is growing. We're building infrastructure to handle more ships and more passengers. But that creates another question. Once you've got thousands of passengers arriving somewhere, where are you going to put them? And that's where today's main story gets really interesting. On my radar, why are cruise lines building their own destinations? I've been sitting on this story for a week, and honestly, I'm glad I waited, because the more I dug into private islands, cruise exclusive destinations, and beach clubs, the more I realized this isn't a story about a few new beaches. It's a story about where the entire industry is headed. So stick with me, because by the end of this, I'm going to ask you a question I genuinely want your opinion on. But let's start with something new. MSC recently announced more details about its new destination in the Dominican Republic. It's called Catalina Sugar Beach, and it's on Catalina Island near La Romana. It's scheduled to open in November of 2026. And there's an important distinction here. Catalina Island isn't a private island owned by MSC. MSC is operating the destination in partnership with CTL Maritime and Casa de Campo Resort and Villas. So it's a cruise exclusive destination experience, and that distinction actually matters because there are several different versions of this trend. Private islands, cruise exclusive destinations, and private beach clubs. Different structures, same underlying strategy. And I'm about to show you all of them. If you've been cruising for a while, think about what the private island used to be. You get off the ship, find a beach chair, grab some lunch, buy a drink, maybe play in the water, and honestly, that was pretty nice. But then Royal Caribbean changed the game with Perfect Day at CocoCay. Royal didn't just renovate a private island, they turned it into an attraction. You've got complimentary beaches, oasis lagoons, splashaway bay, food, and then you've got the things you can pay extra for. The water park, Hideaway Beach, Coco Beach Club, cabanas, zip lines, the giant helium balloon. And that's when I think the private island model really started evolving. The destination wasn't just, here's a beach where your ship stops. It became, here's an entire destination we've created for you. And that model is spreading. Royal Caribbean now has Perfect Day at CocoCay, Royal Beach Club Paradise Island, Royal Beach Club Santorini, and additional destinations in development, including in Mexico and in the South Pacific. I recently talked with my Royal Caribbean representative about why they're investing so heavily in these experiences. And one thing she said really struck with me.
A lot of people didn't want to get off the ship anymore in Nassau because they're like, been there, done that.
And then she explained the goal.
To give people a new reason to go. Perfect Day at CocoCay is, of all of the places that we go in the entire world, it's the #1 rated destination.
We've invested to give people a new reason to go. And I think that's a huge part of this. If you've been to Nassau 5 times, you may eventually say, I've been there, I've done that, I'm staying on the ship, and frankly, I've done that. The cruise line doesn't necessarily want that. So instead of trying to convince you to explore Nassau again, they're giving you another option. Here's a beach experience we've designed specifically for you. And then there's the size of these ships. And this is something we don't always think about. If you've got a ship carrying thousands of passengers, the destination has to be able to handle thousands of people getting off that ship.
What destinations have a terminal that are able to have all of these people get off the ship? Because tendering, think about an Oasis class ship, by the time that everybody would get to the island, they have to turn around to come back. It's too many people. So
tendering thousands of passengers is a completely different proposition than tendering a few hundred. So these cruise exclusive destinations can be designed around the ships. Docks, transportation, security, food, bathrooms, beaches, pools, entertainment. Everything can be built around the reality that thousands of people are going to arrive at roughly the same time. And Royal says this isn't stopping here.
But we're always open and looking at new destinations. There's places all over the world. I know we're looking at Royal Beach Clubs or private destinations in the Mediterranean and other islands in the Caribbean. So stay tuned. You never know.
So this isn't just one project. Cruise lines are actively looking for more places where they can create these experiences. And Royal Caribbean isn't the only one. Disney has been doing this for decades with Castaway Cay, and now there's Lookout Cay at Lighthouse Point. Disney's approach is very much about extending the Disney experience onto the destination. You've got family areas, adult-only areas, included food, beaches, activities, and at Lookout Cay, Bahamian culture is incorporated into the experience. It's not simply, here's Disney's private island. It's, here's Disney in this destination. Then there's Celebration Cay, and Carnival has gone big. Multiple beaches, lagoons, restaurant, bars, activities, and Pearl Cove for adults. And once again, you've got the same basic formula. Some things are included, some things cost extra. And this is something I think every cruiser needs to remember. When a cruise line says our private destination is included in your cruise fare, that doesn't mean everything you see when you get there is included. The exact definition of included varies by cruise line. So don't just ask, does this cruise have a private island? Ask, what's actually included when I get there? Now, Norwegian has Great Stirrup Cay in the Bahamas, and they've been investing in that destination as well. And they're taking another big step with the Great Tides Water Park scheduled to open in September 2026. So once again, private island, attraction. Norwegian also has Harvest Cay in Belize, which is more of a resort-style cruise destination than a traditional private island. And then there's another interesting piece for NCL guests. For guests with the applicable free-at-sea beverage package, that benefit extends to Great Stirrup Cay, but not Harvest Cay. Again, read the details, because included can mean something very different from one cruise line to another. And that brings us back to MSC. MSC has Ocean Cay Marine Reserve. And Ocean Cay is interesting because MSC didn't simply create a giant resort. They built a story around it. You've got beaches, food, the lighthouse, entertainment, excursions, and a marine reserve and conservation component. Now MSC is adding Catalina Sugar Beach. And I think Catalina Sugar Beach may show us another evolution of the model. You don't necessarily have to own the entire island. You can create a controlled, elevated guest experience within an existing destination. And MSC is putting quite a bit into it. A beach pavilion, bars, water sports, cabanas, improved facilities, nature trails. So once again, the destination itself is becoming part of the cruise product. And then you've got Virgin Voyages. Virgin doesn't need an entire private island. They have the beach club at Bimini. And this is a really interesting model because Virgin partners with Resorts World Bimini. When a Virgin ship is there, access to the beach club is included for sailors. You've got food, music, entertainment, the pool, and a very Virgin style atmosphere. But here's the interesting part. Other cruise line passengers also visit Resorts World Bimini Club when Virgin isn't at port, but for a daily pass fee and not with the same inclusions. So you've got one destination, multiple cruise lines, multiple versions of the experience, and I think we're going to see more of that model too. So why do cruise lines want these destinations? At this point, I think there are 5 big reasons. Number 1, experience. The cruise line can control more of what happens when you get off the ship. Number 2, convenience. You don't have to research where to go. You don't have to figure out transportation. You don't have to worry about getting back to the ship. The day is basically designed for you. Number 3, infrastructure. The destination can be built to handle thousands of passengers. Number 4, consistency. Royal can give you a Royal Caribbean experience. Disney can give you Disney. Virgin can give you Virgin. MSC can give you MSC. And number 5, revenue. Let's be honest. These destinations are businesses, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that. The basic destination can be included in your cruise fare, while premium experiences generate additional revenue. Cabanas, water parks, beach clubs, premium dining, drinks, excursions, special experiences, and that creates a pretty smart business model. Give you a destination you don't have to pay extra to enjoy, while giving you plenty of opportunities to spend more. But is this good for us? And this is where I want to bring in the people who actually cruise. I asked the members of my celebrity Facebook group what they thought about private destination. One member didn't hold back. I prefer to explore a traditional port. I believe cruise lines are definitely trying to keep our money in their pockets with private islands. And you know what? That's a fair criticism, because cruise lines are creating beautiful destinations where they control the experience and where there are plenty of opportunities to spend additional money. That's the business model. But another member raised a different issue. They said they would hate to pay for an excursion to a private cruise line destination and then have bad weather prevent them from going and potentially lose that money. And I think that's a really good point. There's a difference between I'm getting off the ship at an included private destination and I just spent several $100s on a premium beach experience. If you're paying extra, you need to understand the cancellation and weather policies. Then there's the other side. Lori told me she prefers traditional ports and doesn't usually go to the beach clubs, but she's been to both CocoCay and MSC's destinations. And she thinks private islands are currently improving Caribbean cruising. But she's worried about where this is heading. Her concern is that we're going to see more and more add-ons until there's very little left for the person who simply wants to enjoy a beautiful beach day without paying extra. Honestly, I think that's probably the biggest question about the future of private destinations. How much of the experience will remain included? Because I don't mind premium options. If you want a cabana, a water park, a private beach area, or an upgraded experience, go for it. But I don't want the basic experience to become so stripped down that I feel like I have to buy something extra to have a good day. And then Scott said something that really summed up the other side. Scott has experienced both CocoCay and the Royal Beach Club in Paradise Island. He liked them for different reasons, but because his cruise package didn't include what he wanted at Paradise Island, he's unlikely to go back. And then he said something that really struck with me. I cruise to visit other countries, and then if I want a beach day, I can do that at home. And I think that's the heart of this whole discussion. Personally, I don't think private destinations are bad for cruising. I actually think they're a great addition. And if I'm on a 7-night cruise and one of my stops is CocoCay, give me the beach day. I'm happy. In November, I did purchase the beach club pass in Paradise Island. But if I book a cruise because I want to see several different countries in every port because it's essentially the same cruise line created experience, I think we've lost something. Because part of why I cruise is to experience places I've never been. I want to walk around. I want to see how people live. I want to eat local food. I want to discover something that wasn't designed by my cruise line. So for me, the perfect cruise probably has a little bit of both. Give me the convenience of a private destination. Give me the beautiful beach. Give me the included food. Give me the option to splurge if I want to, but also give me the opportunity to experience the real destination. And that's where I want to throw the question back to you. And be honest, how much extra are you willing to spend at a private destination before you say, you know what, I'll just stay on the ship? Drop it in the comments. I read everyone, and the cruise lines clearly aren't done building these places yet. So this conversation isn't going away. That's going to do it for this week's Awake Report. If you've enjoyed this episode, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next one. And if you want the Awake Report delivered right in your email box, I've got a link below where you can sign up. And until next time, happy cruising.